AI is about faster, better, cheaper. And in the short term, yes, some people will be displaced. In the long run, healthcare will get it disrupted. The US economy is $30 trillion. Healthcare is $5 trillion. If I don't bring in AI, if I don't embrace AI, I will be left behind. Many of the tech companies are taking advantage of this disruption or trying to figure out what to do.
Pankaj Kedia is the successful founder of 2468 Ventures. He has done 150 plus investments in 15 plus funds and 10 plus exits. He is an AI investor, a keynote speaker, and an MBA faculty.
ChatGPT came out in November 22. In 23, 19 out of 20 companies I would meet thought AI is a marketing term. AI is not about cost cutting and productivity. It's about...
Hello, welcome to the Priyanka Shinde Podcast, where we dive into the art and science of strategy, execution, and leadership. I'm your host, Priyanka Shinde, author of The Art of Strategic Execution and a consultant for tech leaders. In this podcast, I bring you candid conversations with top executives, startup founders, and industry experts who are driving innovation, delivering results, and staying ahead in today's competitive landscape. We will break down what it takes to tap into founder mode and turn vision into action. If you are serious about elevating your leadership and execution skills, make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform or YouTube. It helps the podcast and ensures you never miss an episode. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Priyanka Shinde Podcast. Today, my guest is an accomplished leader in the space of AI, artificial intelligence. Pankaj Kedia is a globally recognized AI thought leader, an early stage investor, chief AI officer, CXO Advisor and consultant, adjunct MBA professor, keynote speaker, board member, and a global AI 150 nominee. Previously, Pankaj played pivotal roles incubating and growing a series of businesses during the internet, mobile, and cloud technology eras across 3 decades at Intel and Qualcomm. As the founder and managing partner of 2468 Ventures, Pankaj has directly invested in 150 plus early stage and Series A startups across silicon systems, software, and services. He is now bringing the benefits of AI to society at large and is focusing on accelerating the AI ecosystem. Pankaj has a knack for spotting trends, was an early believer and investor in NVIDIA and Bitcoin, and has been an early stage investor in many of today's high-flying AI startups. Names you might have heard of, including Anthropic, CorelWeave, Deal, Figure, Grok, Lambda Labs, Magic, OpenAI, Shield AI, and Skidio. He's a sought-after chief AI officer and consults with leading names in the professional services industry, such as BCG, healthcare, financial, like Goldman Sachs, enterprise, and technology companies, specifically wearable devices sectors. Pankaj is a partner at multiple VC firms and angel groups, where he chairs the AI committees, and he teaches AI to MBA students at the University of San Diego. He also sits on multiple public, private, and nonprofit boards of AI companies. He's a sought-after speaker on AI, internet, mobile, and wearables, having spoken at leading conferences globally. He has been an active spokesperson for Qualcomm and Intel and has been quoted frequently in mainstream publications around the world. Pankaj has been recognized as a member of the Constellation Research's Global AI 150 cohort, an elite list of global executives leading AI transformation efforts in the industry. He holds the early defining patent on low power for mobile devices and is a lifelong learner. He has degrees from Stanford, University of Michigan, and the Indian Institute of Technology. Pankaj is an avid photographer, a TED speaker, a gadget addict, and a global traveler. I am so excited to have this conversation with you, Pankaj. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Priyanka. I think we should stop right here with such a with such a bio that you articulated. It is all downhill from here.
Well, I mean, there is definitely a lot you've been doing, and you've been so active in this AI space. And it's just incredible to share that with our audience, because it just goes to show there is so much of possibility. And even for you, there is not one, there is so many different ways to explore all that is possible. So tell us a little bit more, I mean, in your own words, and how are you focusing about your current role?
Yeah. I've been trying to write a book for the last year. I called it The Era of Possibility, but I get so damn busy, I never get to it. Um, but it is, all of us are lucky to be alive at this juncture. If I step back, um, I grew up in India. I came to the US more than 30 years ago. And, after going to school at the University of Michigan, my first decade was spent accelerating the internet. It used to be that we lived in a desktop PC world. You would go to your desk to access the internet. Then we brought the laptop PC. You could access the internet wherever you were, wherever your lap was, wherever you could sit down, in a coffee shop, in a train, flying from here to there, and so on. The next decade, I was fortunate to help Intel get in the mobile internet era with smartphones and handhelds. So if you're using a laptop, if you're accessing the internet, you still have to sit down. The smartphone, iPhone and Android, unleashed us from our lap. You could now access the internet wherever you were, while you're running
Mhm.
or standing in a queue and so on. The next decade, as cloud was taking off, you needed some devices to connect to the cloud. And that's when I came to Qualcomm. We started the IoT business and the wearable business. And so if I look back, a decade on internet, a decade on mobile, a decade on cloud. And as I was approaching the third decade, but by the way, just so there is no confusion, I started working when I was 5. Just so somebody's doing the math. So I'm like, what do I want to do for the next decade or two, right? And I like to say, I went back to my first love. Actually, I came to Michigan from India for my master's in expert systems. AI at the time was called expert systems. My first couple of jobs were in AI, at Ford Motor Company and Navistar. And, throughout my career at Intel and Qualcomm, we have always used AI as a tool, but it has been under the hood. At Intel, it was about big data and ML. At Qualcomm, it was about integrating AI acceleration in IoT and wearables. So, in life, talent is 5%, luck is 95%. Being at the right place at the right time is 95%. So, right when I decided to pivot to the next decade, and decided to spend all my waking hours, sometimes sleeping hours, on AI, um, you know, that's about the time when the Chat GPT moment happened, right? So we'll talk a lot about AI. AI is very different from internet mobile cloud. AI is much bigger than internet mobile cloud. But Priyanka, right now, I'm all in AI. Um, um, when I'm not in deep sleep, I'm thinking about AI. I'm investing in AI. I'm working with very interesting companies, big companies, small companies in AI. Um, I'm teaching AI. Somewhere I read, um, if you read something, you remember 10% of what you read. If you write something, you remember 20% of what you write. But when you teach something, you remember
Yeah.
90% of what you teach. So I call myself a portfolio career in AI. Um,
Hmm.
and I'm working longer, I'm working harder, I'm having the most fun. This is the most exciting time to be alive.
Yeah. 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 You are not slowing down. And I feel like AI should now be your middle name. um, yeah, but that's an amazing journey. And something you said about, I know obviously you put talent as 5 and luck as 95. I'm sure there's a different way to slice that. But you were there, I feel like, at every inflection of point in technology. I mean, we're talking about internet and mobile and IoT or cloud. And that's amazing. You've seen that growth. And you're right, AI isn't a new thing. It's just more mainstream now than it was before, where it feels like one, it can do way more things faster. And yeah, it would be, we'll talk about that a whole lot. So tell us, like, I mean, you're doing a lot and you are, like you said, working a lot. So what does a typical day look like for you?
Yeah, I don't know if typical is the right way to describe it. Um, no 2 days are alike, no 2 hours are alike, Priyanka. Um, there are some things that are constant. I wake up at 4:30. I live in beautiful La Jolla, um, and I go for a run on the beach, come hell or high water. Um, and that's how I start my day. It's a good way to um, think about the priorities for the day. Um,
Mhm.
maybe a good way to answer that question is, you know, internet, mobile, cloud, they started in Silicon Valley. I guess cloud started in Seattle, right? Um,
Mhm.
and then we adopted those technologies across the US and around the world. Fundamental innovation happened in one place, and adoption happened around the world. AI is very different. There are 190 some countries. I track this religiously.
Mm.
Fundamental innovation in AI is happening in more than 50% of the countries, more than 100 countries. Um,
Mm.
you know, for your audience, did you know there are 1,000 language models in the US? Did you know there are 100 language models in India? Did you know new data center investments are happening not just in India, not just in the US, not just in China,
Yeah.
but in India and Mexico, in Japan and Singapore, in Saudi Arabia, and many, many parts of Europe. So AI is truly a global phenomena in terms of fundamental innovation. And of course, it will get adopted. um, around the world. And so it will impact every region. It will impact every sector. It will impact every one of us. Um, and so I think about how can enterprises adopt AI, whether it's healthcare or education or construction or mining or what have you. I think about how startups can win in disruption, win in transition, whether it is chips or data center or agents or applied AI. I think about how investors um, can have the best decade, supporting founders um, and getting good returns for your LPs and your partners. I think about how big tech, Nvidia and Google, and Microsoft and Meta, and Baidu and Alibaba um, are as much disrupting as the startup guys, right? Um, so a typical day for me is I spend a few hours meeting with founders, meeting with startups, understanding what they're doing, investing in them, advising them, helping them find the first customers, helping them move from left to right. Um, I'm an advisor through a few entities, through BCG, through University of San Diego, through a couple of engagements in Mexico. And so through these folks, I'm advising enterprises, Fortune 500, figure out how to embrace AI, how to incorporate AI. 2 years ago, the pulse in the boardroom was, it's too early. We are going to wait. We are going to see how things turn out. And when the time is right, we'll bring in AI. Today, the temperature is very different, right? Today, it is like, if I don't bring in AI, if I don't embrace AI, I will be left behind. So how do I do that, right? I spend a few hours evaluating companies, evaluating technologies, evaluating industry trends. A couple of weeks ago, we had the DeepSeek news break.
Yeah.
And Priyanka, I have to tell you, I had 15 plus calls from investment bankers from different East Coast banks and San Francisco banks and Hong Kong banks. And basically it was, the world is on fire, DeepSeek has won, OpenAI and Google and everybody else will go out of business. Oh my God, what should we do? Right? And I'm like, calm down, guys. This is not the first time. You'll see an update like this every couple of months this year. And this is what it means. I guess a simple way to say is I'm all in AI in a number of ways. And by the way, in the evenings, you mentioned that I teach MBA students at the University of San Diego.
Yeah.
And we are just kicking off the class this semester. We have 26 students. We have 8 teams. They are incubating 8 different AI-powered startups. This was not supposed to be an AI class. it was supposed to be a ventures lab class. But given the interest, given the excitement, given the possibility, if you're not in deep sleep, you cannot escape AI. I can also talk about how I use AI in deep sleep, but maybe another time.
I am sure. I mean, you are doing so many different things, and I'm sure, like, keeping on top of all of these things, is a challenge, and you're balancing so much. And I'm happy to go in that direction. And at the same time, I also think about you're advising some of the big corporations. You're working with startups. You're advising, founders. You are also working with students who are on the path to become something, either in a startup or in a big company. And so it's almost like they are different levels of, or they are in different places. And I'm sure the challenges or the conversations are different in each of those. So, what, according to you, kind of are the differences or the similarities in each of these personas that you have or that you're working with?
My motto is follow the disruption. Companies, individuals, startups win in transition, win in disruption. And there is disruption happening up and down the stack, right? So maybe I'll use that framework. The incumbents have been Intel and AMD, Qualcomm and NXP. And there is disruption happening in the silicon layer where NVIDIA has totally disrupted the data center.
Yeah.
3-4 years ago, Intel plus AMD had 95+% share in the data center. Today, NVIDIA has 75%, right? So we went from CPU-centric to GPU-centric. Many of the big companies, many of the tech companies are taking advantage of this disruption or trying to figure out what to do, right? Many startups, many AI chip startups have raised hundreds of millions of dollars and trying to figure out how to compete with an NVIDIA or a Google, right? So generally, the hardware layer is about scale and capital, and generally the big guys have an advantage. And I'm working with some of the big guys. I'm working with some of the big guys who want to go to Riyadh or India or Singapore to take advantage of this. When you move up from a language model perspective, there's a lot of focus around OpenAI and Google and Meta and so on. These are, I call them LLMs, general purpose large language models. But actually, this is where you start. General purpose. What I see is what I call DLMs, CLMs, and PLMs. So DLM is domain-specific language model. So language model for cancer, language model for law, language model for financial services, right? Startups are seizing these opportunities. PLM, personal language model. So, when you and I use ChatGPT, you don't want to put your personal data because it goes to the cloud and God knows what happens, right? A personal language model would be running on my smartphone, based on my personal smartphone data, making me smarter. Apple Intelligence is an example of that. And Apple has jumped in, but then I see many startups jumping in. And then CLMs, that's country-specific language model. People are talking about it as sovereign AI. So it is not just companies. It is not just universities. Um, countries are investing. India is investing. Singapore is investing. Japan is investing, right? Um, Talking about persona,
Right.
that's a very different persona, right? Um, um, when you go to the software layers, um, I'll take healthcare as an example. Um, the US economy is $30 trillion. Healthcare is $5 trillion. Healthcare has not really changed for the last umpteen decades, right? Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
totally.
even when we have had internet, mobile, cloud, actually, Priyanka, it's shocking. The penetration of internet, mobile, cloud in the healthcare value chain is less than 5%, right? Um,
Yeah.
Healthcare will get it disrupted. AI is in the early stage of disrupting healthcare. And think about drug discovery. Um, Despite all of the investment from Roche and Johnson and Johnson and so on and so forth, all the pharma players, we have not solved cancer. We have not solved diabetes. We have not solved
Mhm.
Alzheimer's. Big
Yeah.
guys are not motivated to disrupt themselves, right? It's the classic Christensen um, law, right? Um, I see so many
Yeah.
startups um, pursuing drug discovery or personalized medicine. Um, um, I cannot sleep. Um, I often used to take melatonin, and melatonin is effective only 50% of the time. When I take melatonin, it goes to my entire body when sleep is determined through your brainwaves. And if I take melatonin, every day for a week, I develop immunity. It becomes less effective, even less than 50%, right? Um, that is because melatonin is designed for the average person. We have 8 billion people. There is no one average person, right? My DNA is different. Um, my makeup is different. My lifestyle is different.
Mm.
I have invested in startups who are doing personalized medicine based on my gene pool and my lifestyle and me being a vegetarian and so on and so forth. That is much more effective, right? So um,
Mm.
you're getting me excited because literally for the first time I would say when internet happened, innovation happened in startups, Google and few other players, Amazon, and they disrupted big industries. For the first time with AI, big tech is investing, startups are investing, countries are investing, research institutions are investing, um, non-profits are investing, um, everyone is investing, right? Um, so that's one of the reasons I'm working with enterprises, with startups, with countries, with investors, and of course, working
Mm.
with future leaders is maybe the most exciting because they are unencumbered. I grew up at Intel, and Gordon Moore at Intel. When you enter the main lobby, um, there's the Gordon Moore, founder of Intel, quote which says, "Don't be encumbered by history. Go off and do something wonderful." Right, and that is always stuck in my
Yeah.
mind. And students today will be leaders tomorrow. So it's very exciting
Mhm.
collaborating with them.
Yeah. Did you just share that on LinkedIn recently? I feel like I just read that yesterday or the
Um,
day before. Um, if yeah, right. And it's amazing to see like how AI has brought about, like you're saying, like it's not just one company or like two or three people in a particular industry trying to invest. It's gone across, it's gone mainstream so quickly. And there is power to what we can do. And I really like your example of healthcare. It is an industry that has sort of not evolved with the times. And there are like the possibilities just open up. We talked about possibilities at the beginning. And when you're talking about personalized medicine, that's what it feels like, because there have been like ways of doing things. And when we talk about disruption, it's challenging, like, oh, this was the way we did things before. And now that's not true anymore, because everything can be done in a different way
Yeah.
and in a better way.
Yeah. But by the way,
So
there's a lot of focus around, will AI take away my job? Right. Just to touch on that, Priyanka, in the short
yes,
term, AI is about faster, better, cheaper. It's about productivity improvement. It's about cost cutting. And in the short term, yes, um, some people will be displaced. In the long run, actually, AI is not about cost cutting and productivity. It's about creating new value. It's about new use cases, right? So when you use AI to streamline, paperwork and hospital insurance context, that's short term. When you use AI to replace a phone bank customer service with a chatbot, that's cost cutting, that's productivity. When we talk about curing cancer, when we talk about going to one-on-one education, one-on-one learning instead of one to many, right? When we talk about using humanoids in a construction context where you are saving literally lives, because using a machine is safer than having humans in skyscrapers and so on,
yes,
right? These are all new use cases. This is what will create so much value that BCG talks about 4.4 trillion value by the end of the decade. McKinsey talks about similar number. And when we talk about age of abundance, when we talk about, well, you don't need to work 5 days, or in some countries 6 days. You can only work 2 days or 3 days. It is because of the new value. And I strongly believe that AI will create many more jobs than it displaces. AI will create much higher value jobs than it displaces. And we have a precedent for this, right? Internet, mobile, cloud. Yes, some people lost jobs, but actually, every one of those technology eras created more jobs, right? So I think this time it is no different. If anything, the upside is much, much bigger.
yeah. You bring up a great point. I think one of the key things, especially people who are not necessarily looking into AI or living and breathing AI all the time, they hear stuff and then there is just this like, AI will take away my jobs. And AI is making us more productive, no doubt. But as you say, those are things that are like just immediate gains. And then in the long run, there is so much value. And I think it's important for people to understand, like you said, that the jobs will evolve. So will our skill set, or like if we want to continue to grow and learn, we can take advantage of what AI has to offer and then go on to do bigger and better things. And that's how I think of, like, every time technology comes in, it frees you up so that you can go do the things that you don't have time for because you're bogged down because of a lack of certain technology.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad you brought that up. And it kind of points me to this question, which is, as an investor, you probably come across hundreds of companies and you're looking at so much. So how do you decide which companies to invest in? What do you look for?
Yeah. I'm an early stage investor. I'm typically the first check, or pre-seed. Sometimes I do seed and Series A. At that early stage, if you focus on what could go wrong, you would never invest because so many things are unknowns, right? Um, so the only question that matters is what if her vision comes alive? What if his product disrupts healthcare or construction, right? Um, how big could the possibility be? That's the main question. So, how do you assess that question? I have a very systematic approach. The first step is, can the market be big enough? It's not, by the way, is the market big enough? It is, can the market be big enough? Right? Um, uh, Uber. Uber started with San Francisco, Silicon Valley, alternative to the black car. If the early investors only focused on how big is the black market in the US, in the Bay Area, and even in the US, um, it would not be exciting. And that's why 29 out of 30 investors said no, right? Um, but but the person who invested, I happen to know her. She said, "How big could the market be?" Uber is not just an alternate to black car; it could be an alternate to taxis. It could be an alternate to car ownership, right? And then the market becomes big. So, number one, how big can the market be? Number two,
Yeah.
how good, how committed, how visionary, how strategic, how execution oriented is the founder or the founding team. You know, do they take no for an answer? Do they walk through walls? Do they have grit? Do they have patience? Are they resourceful? Do they understand their strengths? Do they understand their weaknesses? You're always investing in the jockey, right? And especially in the early stage, I made many mistakes in investing. Um, and every time I get excited about the size of the market today, um, or every time I'm excited about the technology, but the jockey is not the right jockey, it doesn't work out, right? So, how big can the market be? How strong are the founders? And then, specifically in the AI context, it is important to ask the question, how will AI disrupt? Create new value, disrupt the status quo. And Priyanka in ChatGPT came out in November 22. In 23, 19 out of 20 companies I would meet thought AI is a marketing term, right? So they would. Actually, I was in the Bay Area when the internet was just taking off, and people went from pets to pets.com and webvan to webvan.com and so on. The same thing was happening in Silicon Valley and other places. And AI is not a marketing term. Just because you change from X to X.ai, right? Marketing is a side benefit. AI is disrupting silicon, data center, horizontal layers, vertical industries. You need to have the right moat. It could be architecture, it could be the access to data you have, it could be how you are balancing performance and energy. It could be any number of these things, right? But in our AI startup, I went to a good business school. You went to a good business school. Just having a good MBA degree and being able to think analytically um, does not make a good founder in an AI startup. Um, you have to know your stuff. You have to know your
Mm-hmm.
AI because you're using AI to disrupt or create new value. And so those are the three things I look for.
Yeah. You talked about how big can the market be, right? How are like the founders or the founding team? What is kind of their level of involvement and understanding or grit? Like there were some very specific things, and I want to get into that a little bit more. And then you talked about like how is AI going to disrupt. So I just wanted to recap that for our
Yeah.
audience. Um, I did want to touch upon the founder aspect that you mentioned, or the founding team, and we heard about this whole founder mode term that kind of was going viral a few months back. And what you're saying is also kind of tied to that, like the founder or the founding team matters. So, what does this founder mode mean to you, or what is your definition of like what does a good founder look like, or what are the right things they should
Yeah.
do?
Yeah. Now, founder mode is a very important idea, concept. I think when it came out, most people thought it was the founder trying to do everything. He or she is not delegating. He or she is not valuing the team. Um, that's the wrong way to look at it. The right way to look at it is, if you look at the startups that have been most successful, that have been most disruptive, that today are $2 trillion companies, it comes from the original vision of the founder. It comes from what does the founder, or in some cases, the founding team, believe tomorrow can be.
Mhm.
It comes from obsessing on the problem. The solution will change 10 times to Sunday, right? But they really obsess about what's broken or what is possible and work tirelessly to get there. It also means you don't take no for an answer. It also means you never give up. It also means the other things we talked about, Priyanka, grit and perseverance and resourcefulness and so on and so forth, right? It does not mean the founder is doing everything. Actually, a good founder knows his or her strength and weaknesses, and building a good team around him or her also speaks to the awareness, the judgment of the founder. So that's how I tend to look at it. This idea is not new. The qualities of a founder, right? I guess the term founder mode came into existence a few months ago, as you know. But these are timeless qualities. And they've been proven over and over and over again.
Right. Yeah, I think the concept has always been there, and then it's just been packaged where it just catches on a little bit more. But that's really a lot of like nuanced things around the founder that you mentioned, and it's really helpful for anybody who's out there thinking about their startup or even how to scale their startup, because at a certain point you cannot do everything. Like I said, you have to know your weaknesses, you have to know your strengths. So what advice would you give any founder, any aspiring entrepreneur who's looking to integrate AI or build something with AI as you look into the future?
Yeah. Never give up. Have your own point of view. I started my career at Intel, and Intel was and remains a very democratic place. I was sitting 5 cubes down from Andy Grove. He was the CEO at the time. And to go to any meeting, to go any place, he had to cross my cube. And for the first 18 months, 2 years, during break or whatever, we started chatting with each other. And then he became my mentor. And I don't remember the specifics actually, but I remember what he said. I was complaining about, I want to do this, and this person is not letting me do it, etc. And he said, does he have the authority to say? He said, so he's saying no to you? Yes. Does he have the authority to say yes? No. Then he said, Pankaj, he called me Pankaj, never take no from an answer who does not have the authority to say yes. And after 30 years, that has always stuck with me. Good founders don't take no for an answer. They especially don't take no for an answer from somebody who does not have the authority to say yes, right? So you want to raise money, you're talking to the associate, so he or she can say yes, and then you talk to somebody else, right? But the associate does not have the decision-making power to make the investment. My advice to the founder is, don't talk to middle people. Start at the top. If that person can say yes, it's okay for him or her to say no, but don't take no from anybody else, right? Good founders, strong founders are opinionated. They have a point of view. They've been called crazy many times. But they also are quick learners. They are always listening. There are classic stories about Steve Jobs. He was very adamant, but he was always listening. And he may not change his mind on the spot, but he'll change his mind the next day because of what he learned. So it's these combination of things. I happen to believe that good founders are born. Some of these things are inherent qualities. It's very difficult to learn. But I try anyway.
Yeah. Well, there's a certain muscle, but I'm sure if you really put in a lot of hard work, you can groom that muscle, and it probably comes easier to some people. Lots of great advice there. As we wrap up today's episode, anything else you would want to say on AI that you haven't already mentioned?
Yeah. I've been giving a lot of keynotes, and I've been starting with how many people think we are in a hype cycle. A year ago, 90% of the hands went up. Today, I still see 30 or 40% of the hands go up. I strongly believe we are at the beginning of the cycle of a 1 or 2 year secular change. No, we are not on a hype cycle. Number two, this has changed over time, but there are a section of the people who are more worried about the risks than the upside. There are risks around regulatory issues, legal issues, ethical issues, geopolitical issues. But I strongly believe that the upside is so much greater than the risks that humans, our ingenuity, always figures out how to tackle the risks because the upside is so big, right? Um,
Mhm.
and last comment I would make is no, AI is not another technology. I hear this sometimes. There was internet, there was mobile, there was cloud, there was um, metaverse, there was crypto, there is AI. What's next? Quantum, whatever, right? Um, um, if we think of AI that way, we are missing the point. Um, AI is actually building on the internet, mobile, cloud foundation. Um, AI and blockchain. AI will truly transform. I'll close with where we started. Every region, every sector, every human, every country. AI will provide the foundation for the next run around quantum, right? Um, so there is no escaping AI. We cannot get AI wrong. Um, AI is bigger than every one of those because it is building on their shoulders. If any of your audience still thinks we are in a hype cycle, there are significant risks we cannot overcome, or AI is just another fad, talk to me, call me. But Priyanka,
Yes.
thank you for having me. This is so much fun. We could talk AI all day long.
I feel the same way. I feel like there's so much more that I can like tap into, and maybe we have to do another episode. But this was wonderful. I loved the three comments you made, and it almost kind of, I was picturing what you were saying about how AI is built on the foundation of mobile and internet and everything. And at the same time, it's disrupting that same foundation too. And that's so amazing. Like nothing like that has ever happened before. So I had a wonderful time with this conversation, and I wish I could like continue to do more. And we'll see if we want to do it again. But thank you so much for coming by and sharing such wonderful nuggets of wisdom and telling us so much more about AI and how it's going to be the future.
Thank you, Priyanka. It is so much fun discussing AI with you. Bye. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. If today's conversation sparked new ideas or challenged your perspective, I'd love to hear from you. I work with tech leaders and founders to tackle complex challenges, whether it's scaling teams, making high-stakes decisions, or turning ambitious ideas into reality. If that sounds like something you are navigating, let's connect. Reach out via my website, thepriyankashinde.com, or find me on LinkedIn.